Welcome to Student Weekend. I'm so glad to see you. Come on, let's stand to our feet. Let's lift up the name of Jesus this morning. Amen. Come on. Your word is a lamp unto my feet. Your way is the only way for me. It's a narrow road that leads to life, and I want to be on it. It's a narrow road, but the mercy's wide, 'cause you're good on your promise. Come on, I'll take you at your word. If you said it, I'll believe it. I've seen how good it works. If you started, you'll complete it. I'll take you at your word. Hey! Come on, you spoke. You spoke, and the chaos fell in. Yeah, I know, 'cause I've seen it in my life. It's a narrow road that leads to life, and I want to be on it. Yeah, it's a narrow road, but the tide is high, but you parted the water. I'll take you at your word. If you said it, I'll believe it. I've seen how good it works. Yes, I have. If you started, you'll complete it. I'll take you at your word. If you said it, I'll believe it. I've seen how good it works. If you started, you'll complete it. I'll take you at your word. Oh, you're good on your promise. Yeah, I know you're good on your promise. Come on, church, let's sing of his promises right now. 'Cause you said your love would never give up. You said your grace is always enough. You said your heart would never forget or forsake me. Come on, you said I'm saved. You said I'm saved. You call me yours. You said my future's full of your hope. You never fail, so I know that you'll never fail me. You said your love would never give up. You said your grace is always enough. You said your heart would never forget or forsake me. You'll never forsake me. You said I'm saved. You call me yours. You said my future's full of your hope. You've never failed, so I know that you'll never fail me. I'll take you at your word. If you said it, I'll believe it. I've seen how good it works. If you started, you'll complete it. So I'll take you at your word. If you said it, I'll believe it. I've seen how good it works. If you started, you'll complete it. I'll take you at your word. Oh, you're good on your promise. Oh, you're faithful to your word. Yeah, I'll take you at your word.
Woo! Let's give it up for God, y'all. Hi, everyone. My name is Piper, and I'm a rising senior here at Grace Students, which is our middle school and high school ministry. And I've had so many amazing opportunities within Grace, whether it's just coming to Wednesdays or spring retreats or Camp VXV. But the best one so far has been this past week, me and 29 other students went to the Dominican Republic on a mission trip. And it literally changed my life. I had such a perspective shift, and it was honestly so surreal. But one thing I noticed really, really quickly in the trip was the staff and the kids in the VBS and the families that we went to go see all relied so heavily on Jesus, and their prayer life was literally so insane. And we prayed like rain away, we prayed supplies would last, and all of it like happened, and it was crazy. The people there just like had no doubt that God would fulfill and come through. And so coming back, I really wanted to have the same mindset. And so I leaned on Matthew 21:22, which says, if you believe, you will receive whatever you ask for in prayer. And this is Jesus talking to the disciples about having no doubt when they have faith. And this verse just helps me to invite God into all my situations and trust that his plan is like going to suffice my life. And so going into this next song, I pray that we come to Jesus with every struggle, whether it's healing or just being patient with your siblings, that we just invite God into our lives and trust that he will come through. In Jesus' name, amen.
I just want to speak the name of Jesus over every heart and every mind. 'Cause I know there is peace within your presence. I speak Jesus. Come on, speak it over your situation. 'Cause I just want to speak the name of Jesus till every dark addiction starts to break, declaring there is hope and there is freedom. I speak Jesus. Come on, your name. Your name is power. Your name is healing. Your name is life. Break every stronghold. Shine through the shadows. Burn like a fire. 'Cause I just want to speak the name of Jesus over fear and all anxiety. Come on. To every soul held captive by depression. Come on, we shout his name. I speak Jesus. Your name is power. 'Cause your name is power. Your name is healing. Your name is life. Break every stronghold. Shine through the shadows. Burn like fire. Shout Jesus from the mountains. Jesus in the streets. Jesus in the darkness over every enemy. Jesus for my family. I speak the holy name, Jesus. Come on, there's power in his name. So let's shout it out together. We shout Jesus from the mountains. Jesus in the streets. Oh, we shout Jesus. Jesus in the darkness over every enemy. Oh, and for my family. Jesus for my family. I speak the holy name. We speak your holy name. Come on, for your family, for your city, let's shout this together. We shout Jesus from the mountains, Jesus in the streets, Jesus in the darkness over every enemy, Jesus for name is healing. Your name is life. You break every stronghold, shine through the shadows, burn like a fire. 'Cause I just wanna speak the name of Jesus over every heart and every mind. 'Cause I know there is peace within your presence. I speak Jesus.
Blessed are those who run to Him, who place the hope and confidence in Jesus. He won't forsake them. Blessed are those who seek His face, who bend their knees and fix their gaze on Jesus. They won't be shaken. Come on and praise the Lord with me. Sing if you love His name. Come on and lift your voice with me. He's worthy of all our praise. Blessed are those who walk with Him, whose hearts are set on pilgrimage with Jesus. They'll see His glory. Blessed are those who die to live. His joy it is to give it all for Jesus and for Him only. Oh Jesus, all for your glory. So come on and praise the Lord with me. Sing if you love His name. Come on and lift your voice with me. He's worthy of all our praise. Come on and bring your offering. Sing if you know His grace. Come on and lift up your holy hands. He's worthy of all our praise. Bless God in the sanctuary. Bless God in the fields of plenty. Bless God in the darkest valley. Every chance I get, I bless your name. Bless God when my hands are empty. Bless God with the praise that cost me. Bless God when nobody's watching. Every chance I get, I bless your name. Bless God when the weapon's forming. Bless God when the walls are falling. Bless God 'cause He goes before me. Every chance I get, I bless your name. Bless God for He holds the victory. Bless God for He's always with me. Bless God for He's always worthy. Every chance I get, I bless your name. Oh, Yes, He's worthy of all our praise.
Can we give it up for the worship? Good morning, Grace Church. Y'all can take your seats. My name is Samantha. I'm a student here at Grace Church, and this weekend we are having Student Weekend, so we're able to raise awareness for our Camp EXP, which we have this summer. But before we talk about that, I'd love to welcome our first-time guests. If this is your first Sunday, we're so happy you're here, and we'd just love to send you a warm welcome. There is a Connect card right in front of you. It looks just like this, and if this is your first Sunday, we would love it so much if you could fill it out. That would be awesome. And what this does, it just helps us get to know you better, and we would love that. What you can do with this card, you can either throw it in the blue buckets we're going to pass around soon, or the black boxes in the back of the auditorium, or our personal favorite, we have a guest service kiosk out in the front of the lobby, and after service, you can stop by there, and we have a team waiting for you, and they would love to say hi and just introduce themselves and help you get plugged into the spiritual family here. We love the saying, come 3 times, because you not only get to hear all the content we have, but you get to experience the culture and the community, which we find is really important. So now it's time to receive our offering, and this is just a time for our regular attenders and members to just give to the Lord and give back to His kingdom. We do this because Jesus tells us in Acts 20:35 that it's better to give than to receive. So there's 2 ways you can give with us this morning. You can either give in the blue buckets we're passing around, or go to grace.com/give. I'd love to pray over our offering. Dear Heavenly Father, thank you so much for this morning that you've let us come here, Lord. Please just bless our offering today, Lord. Thank you that you've blessed us to be a blessing. Please fill us with generosity, Lord. Please let Joe's message speak to our hearts this morning. In your name we pray, amen. Thank you.
Hey everyone, my name is Ray and I serve and attend every Wednesday night at Grace Students. In just 1 month, Grace Students will be headed to our favorite event of the year, Camp EXP. So many students have had powerful experiences while enjoying the state-of-the-art Carolina Point in the beautiful mountains of Brevard, North Carolina. It's a one-of-a-kind opportunity to encounter the presence of God, be personally discipled by leaders, make lasting friendships, and have a ton of fun. We want every student to have this experience, and today is vital for making this a reality. After the service, we'd love for you to grab a free burger and some snacks from our EXP cookout. And if you'd like, you can make a donation to help us send students to camp. To make a donation, you can visit gracelife.com/give and select EXP, or you can scan the QR code out in the lobby. For more information about Camp EXP or to register your student, visit gracelife.com/EXP.
At the Movies is starting in 2 weeks. This is a very special time of the year when we transform the church into a movie theater experience,
complete with free candy, popcorn, and soft drinks. We will intertwine movies with spiritual principles and stories from the Bible in order to make practical applications to our lives. Over the years, we've had the privilege to welcome many guests during our At the Movies series. This is a perfect opportunity for you to bring someone with you to experience church like never before. So don't hold back. After the service, pick up invite cards in the lobby or download digital invites at gracelife.com/atthemovies. The featured films will be showing at all services until August 3rd. We can't wait to see you at the movies. If you're new here, then we want to say welcome home. We'd love to help you find your place in our spiritual family. And the best way to start is by joining us for Step 1. You'll get to hear about our story, vision, and values, and you'll get to meet some of our amazing team members. Step 1 is happening Sunday, July 13th at 12:30 p.m. And we've got you covered with a complimentary lunch and childcare. To sign up, you can simply fill out the Connect card in front of you and check the box Sign Me Up for Step 1, or you can head over to gracelife.com/connect. We can't wait to see you at Step 1.
This is Joe with Mike on a Stick. I'm here with
Omi.
And Omi, can you tell us what you do?
I'm a missionary.
A missionary.
And I love to serve God, to preach the gospel, to go into the nations and make disciples. And this week we have the glorious opportunity to have your team in the Dominican Republic building a home for one family. The statement of who I want is to know God and to make Him known. Jesus said, go into the nations. We need to move people.
What's been the coolest thing you've seen since being here?
Teamwork. We're making this all work.
I really liked meeting the family. It was just really cool that they appreciated us so much.
The joy we're creating and how they were also respecting God.
We went to people's houses, prayed over them, sang songs with them, worshiped.
Every day I just ask, what do you want me to do today? And what do you want me to say? And this is unbelievable life.
Grace Church, let's give it up for our students. How cool is that? Well, welcome and good morning. My name is Joe, and I'm so glad you decided to be here today, whether at Chapel Hill, at Alamance. I'm so glad that you're with us, Alamance, or online. And you guys picked a perfect service to be here because, as you've probably realized, it's Student Takeover Weekend. And our students are showing up and showing out. You probably saw them when you walked in greeting. They're manning the burger and hot dog lines. They were up on stage worshiping. They're in the booth doing tech. And even they're on the camera. Gotcha, Gabe. And so they're just killing it today, and I'm so proud of them. But again, if you haven't met me yet, you're like, why is this guy talking about students? I am the student director here at Grace Church. So I have the privilege of working with the middle school, high school, and college students. I actually came on staff in February. I've been at Grace Church for about 2.5 years, but it was just this past February I came on staff. Previously, I was an engineer with Volvo Trucks. And I didn't come alone. I came with my family. We have a good picture for you, hopefully, and then you can see this is my beautiful wife, Kinsley. Oh, there's one, I promise. I have a wife, I promise, and a family. I'm not kidding. This is my wife, Kinsley, and our two boys, Bexton, who is 3, and Chayton, who's 5. I had someone come up to me after service at the 9:30, and they're like, which one is which? They're the same height. You can't tell. If you get it right, you win a prize. So I like to say when I came on staff, I started working at the church, but my kids, they owned the church. That's what they decided. You'll see them running around the halls, acting like they own the place. Just go with it. It's super fun. But this past week, we got to come back. Kinsley and I, we got to go to the Dominican with 30 students, and Brooke Love and Hugo, who are also part of our student leadership team, and we got to spend 9 days serving the people in the Dominican. And let me brag about the students. I know you saw the video, but when we showed up, there was a concrete slab on the ground. And in 7 days, our students made a 2-bedroom house. And this is like a house with, it had running water, it had electricity, it was nice. I mean, they painted the walls, it was drywalled. It was a super nice house, and they worked super hard. They were getting after it. They were up early in the morning, staying up late at night. And it was really fun because we finished, so we built the house all week, and then the last day, I got to fulfill my childhood dream and be a part of an Extreme Makeover Home Edition moment. We sent the family out, and the program we were with, YWAM, they had bought all of the furnishings for the house. So they bought beds, they bought dressers, they bought couches, they even bought like cookware and plates and cups. And we sent the family out, and then we got to fill the house and hide inside of it. So there's 36 of us crouched down in this house trying to be quiet. That was the first miracle I saw Jesus do, was all 36 students being quiet. I'm just kidding. And then the family came home, and when they opened the door, they thought they were just going to see like the finished painted product. But they got to see all of us yelling surprise and all the furnishing, which they weren't anticipating. And it was really special. The family actually, it was a family of 6, mom and dad and 4 kids. And the mom was so sweet. She was so grateful. She told us the first day, her prayer to God had been for a long time that before he took her home, she would have a home to leave her kids in. And she got to see that fulfilled. And we, as Grace students, got to partner with YWAM and God in doing that. And one of the most special moments for me of the whole trip was when we did that Extreme Makeover Home Edition moment. One of the little girls, when she walked into her room and she saw for the first time in her life, she had her own bed. She just started sobbing. And she was just so grateful. She couldn't believe it. And it really made me realize, how much I take for granted. And so it was so cool to be a part of that. And then on top of building the house, our students did a lot. They did more. They also ran a VBS. And so I want to brag on them for a second, because when we heard come to a VBS, we were thinking like how Pastor Ethan does it. So it's going to be a week. We brought all the supplies and the programming materials for that. And the first day we had a team stay back from construction because they were going to do VBS. And the people at YWAM were like, oh no, when we said that, we meant like we have a Saturday Bible school that you guys can help with. So we don't have any kids for you today. And the students, rather than being upset or frustrated, they had such good attitudes. They were like, okay, well, what can we do? And so the one thing that they were told that they could do to start was they were like, you can pull weeds. And these weren't normal weeds. These were like ant-infested, trying to kill you weeds. And in fact, they told me they had a system where they would go and they would kick like 10 weeds in a row so the ants would scatter, and then they could go back and pick them without getting ant bites. And they had a great attitude even through that. And I think God really blessed them, because unbeknownst to them, while they were out pulling these crazy weeds, the YWAM director actually went and she started making phone calls. And at lunch, she surprised our students and our team, and she said, hey, I made some calls. You said you have stuff, so we have kids coming today. And our students were like, oh, this is amazing. Which again, I think is a great attitude, because I might have been like, oh my gosh, I should have been planning since this morning. But they're like, we're going to do it. And so they had 3 hours before kids showed up, and they put on such a good VBS. The first day they had 33 kids come, and they did such a good job. Those kids told their friends, and by the end, they had 55 kids who got to go hear the gospel message and go through VBS. Can we give it up for that? I mean, come on. And then finally, the other thing they did was the VBS team, each day, they had an hour before lunch where they got to go into the community to evangelize. And this was a surprise to them, and to many of them, it was also really scary. And I remember the first day, some of them were like, Joe, I don't think I can do it. Like, what do I do? I mean, I don't even speak their language. This is scary. How am I supposed to go do this? But they did it, and they pushed through. And by the end, these kids were so excited to share the gospel that they were literally like almost running house to house, up hills, in the heat, outside, super hot and exhausting, because they were determined to tell as many people as they could about Jesus. And by God's grace, there was 3 people who came to know the Lord through the ministry that they were doing, which was fantastic. Yeah, let's give it up for that too. These students, they poured their lives, they poured out into the lives of so many Dominicans and the people around them. They really got to pour into the poor, the sick, the hurting. And I'm really proud of them for that. But now they're back in Chapel Hill. And I was kind of talking to them, and it's like, okay, what do you do now that you're back in Chapel Hill? Because of course, when you're on a missions trip, you're going to pour out. You're going to get after it for Jesus. That's what you went on the trip for. But now you're home. What do you do? And for all of us, right, we're in Chapel Hill too. What do we do? How do you continue to pour out for Jesus even when you're home? And so that's what we're going to talk about today, is how we can pour out Jesus' love to others. But before I start, I had the privilege of giving a very similar message to this to young adults a couple months ago. And before I started, it was my first time ever speaking. And I was like, okay, what do I do? So I did what any good millennial would do, and I went to ChatGPT. I said, ChatGPT, how do I even start this thing? And what ChatGPT told me was, it said, I need to establish credibility, or else you guys won't hear anything I'm saying, because I'm not credible. And ChatGPT knows these things. So I'm like, all right, I'm going to trust you, ChatGPT. And so I did it. So here we go. All right. So how can we live a life poured out? And how am I qualified to talk about it? Well, I'd like to tell you that I can talk about pouring out because I'm the dad of Bex and Chait. And I know I just lost you. You're like, what does that have to do with it? Is this really a corny joke about you pouring into your kids? It's not. I wish it was. But I have 2 stories that I think will lend to my credibility. The first story is about 2 years ago. My youngest Bex was about to turn 2. And we had a family get together in Minnesota for a wedding. And my little sister, Aunt Molly, was there. And Aunt Molly, she takes the responsibility of being the fun aunt so serious. She's like, I will be the fun aunt. And so my young son Bex, who's 2, she decided she was going to teach him how to chug. So she would fill up a cup like this full of water. He could barely drink out of a cup without a sippy lid on it. But she's like, I'm going to teach you. And so she'd fill it up a little bit. He would drink it all, and then she would hold it out and dump the cup and go, all done. So it's like, hey, I finished all my drink. I'm all done. It was like this. She's like, okay, Joe, check this out. And so she showed me. She's like, isn't that the cutest thing in the world? I was like, yes, that's cute. But Molly, I'm so mad at you right now. And she's like, what? Why are you mad? I was like, because what you don't understand is that Bexton, in all of his toddlerness, does not know the difference between all done, I finished all of the liquid in this cup, or all done, I'm just done drinking. And she was like, no, you're crazy. He knows. I was like, all right, we'll see. Sure enough, later that afternoon, little Bexton goes and he fills his own cup up. And he fills that sucker up so full, it was like, it's like not to the brim, but it's over the brim, and you got to use like the force to keep the water in the cup. He filled it up that full, and he went and he took the tiniest sip I've ever seen, and then he goes and he holds his hand out, looks my sister right in the eye, and dumps it over, all done. Water everywhere. And I was thinking, okay, joke's on Molly. I'm right, you got to clean it up. No, joke was on me, because for the next 2 months, I was struggling to get Bexton to stop doing it at home, because he would keep getting cups and going, all done, pouring water everywhere. And so, yes, I'm a little qualified on pouring out. But you're probably like, not that qualified, right? Let's go, because I got another story for you that I think will seal the deal. This story is about my older son, Chayton. And so this was about a year ago. He had a friend over to play, and they were upstairs doing their thing. And Kinsley, she brings life to our home, both in her personality and with plants. And she lets me know that this is what brings life. And so, but plants are high maintenance. She has to keep watering them. And she doesn't water them how I thought you had to. I learned you don't just pour water on the top every time. But actually what she does is she will fill a sink. She'll like plug it, fill it 2 to 3 inches with water, and then put the plant in so it saturates the roots. So she was doing that. And Chayton decided he needed to use the restroom. So he goes to use the bathroom in that same one, and he goes to wash his hands. And so I like to imagine what it looked like was he turned on the sink, got some soap, lathered for 30 seconds, I hope. Then he's like, washed his hands, and then he's off to go play with his friend. But he never turned the water off. I found this out because who knows how long later, I was downstairs, and there was a puddle on the ground. And I was like, oh, what's a puddle for? But like I said earlier, my kids spill their drinks all the time, so like whatever. Cleaned it up, these dang kids. And then a couple minutes later, I come back and that same puddle's there. And I'm like, what? They spilled twice in the same spot? And I go to clean it up, and then I hear it. It's like a drip. And I look up, and there's water like forming all on the ceiling. And so what had happened was he didn't turn the water off. The water went over the sink. It went down the side, back behind where the toilet area is, and then in between the baseboard and the tile, the caulking had cracked, and it seeped down in there, and it filled the space between the upstairs ceiling and the downstairs floor. And once I had realized this is what it looked like. And so when I poked holes in and put buckets under, kid you not, buckets of water, like 5+ gallons of water that had made its way and poured down into my downstairs. So hopefully now we're established, you're tracking with me, you're like, okay, Joe, you're a little bit credible on pouring out. ChatGPT has been fulfilled. But the reason I'm showing this and talking about it is because what I want to speak on today isn't maybe accidental water spills, but how we can have an intentional life poured out into those around us. How we can live a life outpouring Jesus' love to our neighbors, friends, and family. But I know despite all the credibility that I just gained through my stories, some of you are still like, Joe, I can't track with you. Because you're talking about pouring out, but the problem is I'm already poured out. Right? Some of you are like, I went empty a long time ago. Anyone else ever feel empty? Right? Sometimes you just get exhausted. You get in a state where you go to work, you do the things you got to do, you come home, you do the more things you got to do, and you go to bed. And you're like, you can't find time to get refreshed, to get refilled. You're just exhausted. You feel like everyone in your sphere just needs things from you. Your boss is just taking. Your coworkers are just taking. Your friends are taking from you. Even your family, right? Your family's taking. Your kids are taking. But you don't feel like you're receiving, and you're burnt out. You're tired. You're exhausted. Prior to coming on staff at Grace, Kinsley and I had the privilege of leading some young adult small groups. And a common thing we heard over and over from our friends in the groups was some version of, I can't pour into others right now because my cup is empty and I need to focus on filling it. Right? Anyone ever feel that way where you think, I think at some point all of us have, where you're like, my cup's just too low. I need to worry about how I can fill it before I can give to someone else. And so I think the question really is not how can we pour out Jesus' love, but how can we pour into those around us even when we're feeling empty? And that's what I want to talk about. And now I do want to acknowledge that as I'm saying this, it can come across as another to-do, as another way to perform. Okay, here's another thing I have to do with those around me. I have to check a box. I got to give to other people. And you're like, I'm already empty. Why are you adding to my plate? And what I hope is by the end of today, you'll realize with me that this isn't another to-do. It's not a performance, but it's a way for us to live out the divine design that God has put in us, and that it's not necessarily a take, but it's a way that we can be filled. And so who better to look at for how to pour into others than Jesus? Because Jesus, he poured out. And now I want to say, my friend, he made fun of me. I showed him my notes, and he's like, Joe, seriously, your first time preaching, and you're going to go with what would Jesus do? Like, dude, like, what are you going to wear, a bracelet? Get original. Come on. And the truth is, I wish I had an Old Testament story to tell you. But guys, I told you, I started in February. I don't know those characters yet. I'm kidding, kind of. So we're going to look in John 15. And the background of where we're at is this is the Last Supper. And so we know that Jesus is aware that he's about to be arrested. He's going to be tortured. He's going to be killed. He's probably, I would imagine, so stressed out knowing what's coming. And you want to talk about an empty cup. I can't imagine how he felt just with the anticipation of that all day. And so what does he do in his last moments? What does he do when he's stressed out to prepare for what he's doing? He does what anybody would do before a stressful event. He decides to host 12 people over at his house, right? What's more relaxing than that? That's what I try to convince my wife. She tells me it's not the case. No, but he hosts people at his house. And not only is he hosting dinner, but he doesn't just take the place of host, he takes the place of servant. And we know that at the Last Supper, he chose to wash the feet of his disciples. And let's just acknowledge together that these feet were not like when your youth pastor would do the example of washing feet in youth group growing up. And he'd take off like a student's clean shoe and sock. And then when he washes their foot, the water's like cleaner than when he started. Like, these are nasty feet. These guys were wearing sandals all day in the dirt and who knows what. I personally got a little bit of an appreciation for this on the missions trip because the last day when we were doing the Extreme Makeover Home Edition moment, we all were like putting furniture in the house, and we weren't allowed to bring our shoes in because we didn't want to get the floors muddy. And so everyone took their shoes off, and there's 36 pairs of shoes out there, and it started raining. And Alamance, they have the best student director ever. He's the GOAT, and he decided to save all of us because it started raining, and he put all of our shoes in a trash bag and inside so they wouldn't get soaked. He was the hero of the day. I ended up being the zero because I was the first one that needed to go outside, and I was like, okay, well, I'll get everyone's shoes out. There was 36 pairs of shoes in this bag, and I almost threw up 36 times as I reached in there to grab a pair. These students' feet, after a week of manual labor and no good hygiene access, was horrible. And these are I gotta imagine, these are the kind of feet that Jesus was washing. And so Jesus, but he spent his last moments, that's who he is, pouring into the disciples, hosting them, serving them, and then also teaching them. We know that in his last moments, he didn't think about how they could pour into him, what they could give him, how they could encourage him. But he was focused on them and how he could pour into them. He knew that they were going to go through a lot as well. Their leader was going to get arrested, tortured, killed, and how draining that would be for them, the fear that they would have as they went through the ordeal, the expectations of now going out and carrying forward God's kingdom. And so he needed to encourage them. And what does he say? How does he tell them they can deal with what's coming ahead? He says in verse 12, "My command is this, love each other as I loved you. Greater love has no one than this, to lay down one's life for one's friends." Now, when Jesus said, love each other as I loved you, the disciples, they didn't need context because they had 3 years of context of what that meant. They lived with Jesus on his ministry, and they experienced on the road, after a long day's travel, Jesus still helping the sick and the poor. They experienced when Jesus fed the 5,000, he was actually going away to find rest in a quiet place, and he got met with a crowd hungry for his teaching. And what did he do, right? In that time when he was drained, he decided to preach and to build and pour into those people's lives. And in fact, he did it so long that the disciples got worried that the people who were sitting there listening were tired and hungry. I mean, let alone Jesus who was giving that message. Jesus always poured out. And that's what he encourages his disciples to do. He doesn't tell them, hey, make sure your needs are met. It's going to be stressful. Make sure you take some me time and go worry about yourself so that then you can go worry about others. No, in fact, he says, forego your needs. Lay them down. Lay down your entire life. He doesn't say, he does say, he says the greatest kind of love is when you give yourself away for someone else. And I think for myself, if I think about that, and I think about that standard that he's setting, I oftentimes fall short. Jesus says to lay down my life for my friends, but there's many Friday nights where I've struggled with laying down the TV show I want to binge watch so I can go hang out with a friend that needs me. There's times I come home from work and I'm tired, and I have a hard time laying down my need for rest to pour into my kids and spend time with them. There's times where I have a hard time laying down my schedule to go get coffee or lunch with someone who needs someone to talk to. Laying down sports to hang out with my wife. Really, when I think about it a lot, I often fall short of that standard. But Jesus says, he tells them, he says, they will know you are disciples by your love. Meaning your coworkers, neighbors, friends, and family, they'll know that you are a follower of Jesus by the fruits of the gospel in your life, not by where you sit on a Sunday morning. They'll know that you love Jesus and you follow him by the way you treat other people, not by a t-shirt that you wear. I had a college student recently. He told me a story about, he was sitting in chemistry class, and it's assigned seatings, and he's about 2 months into class. And the person who was sitting next to him noticed that he had a cross tattoo. And he goes, oh, that's a really cool tattoo. I didn't know you were a Christian. And this is 2 months into class. And the college student told me he was so disappointed. He was just so sad when the person said that, because he realized that in 2 months of sitting next to this person, it took the person noticing a picture on his arm to realize that he loved Jesus. And I think for myself, I'm often in the same boat as this student. There's so many times that I'm around people and I'm so focused on what I need to do and the things I need to get done that I'm not focusing on who's around me and how I can serve and love them. A lot of times, the biggest picture of Jesus in my life might actually be that Christian t-shirt, not the way that I treat other people. And now, I don't have a cross tattoo to point people to Jesus. Maybe I should get one. But when I was in 7th grade, I did want a tattoo. And I wanted a Superman logo on my chest, tattooed in. Let people know I mean business. This is 2010. Cam Newton was going crazy. He was doing the Superman pose on everybody. You guys are from North Carolina. You know exactly what I'm talking about. And I was like, I need that. And so I told my mom. I was like, Mom, I need this tattoo. And apparently, when you're a minor, you need your parents' permission. Can I get this tattoo? And my mom's like, not crazy. So she's like, absolutely not. You're not getting a Superman logo on your chest. But I was a middle school boy. And as I'm being reminded of now, leading middle school boys are great at finding loopholes. Some of you guys have a middle school boy, and you know exactly what I'm talking about. And so I said, you know what? I might not be able to get a tattoo, but there's no law against tan lines. And so I got some duct tape. I duct taped out the Superman logo on my chest. And I was in Arizona at the time, so I just laid out all day and got cooked. By the end of the day, I was bright red, sunburned completely. But when I took that duct tape off, the lines were crisp. And I had a Superman logo on my chest. At any point, I could show up to any pool party, take my shirt off, and everyone knew I meant business. I could do a belly flop, wouldn't even hurt, right? I was Superman. You guys are like, why are we talking about middle school tan lines? Well, the thing is, I think the reason I wanted the Superman logo was, and why I thought he was so cool, was because Superman, he was strong, he never got tired, and he was invincible. And he didn't use these attributes for himself, he used them to help people. And I think some of us, when you're hearing me talk about pouring into others and the example Jesus set, it's like, Joe, that would be great if I was Superman, but I'm not him. Right? Superman, he was strong, but I don't feel strong. Maybe you're dealing with health issues and you don't have that strength. Or maybe just you're like, hey, I can't even lift my burdens. How am I supposed to help lift the burdens of someone else? Maybe you're like, Superman never gets tired, but Joe, I'm tired. I'm burnt out. Times are tough. I'm working 2 jobs right now, or I'm a college student and I have crazy class schedules and I'm so stressed out. I'm caring for an aging parent, and that's a lot. Or I'm navigating retirement. Maybe you have young kids, and you're tired because they don't let you sleep. But you're burnt out, and you're like, how am I supposed to pour into others when I'm too tired for myself? Or finally, Joe, Superman was invincible, but I'm not invincible, I'm broken. I had a friend or a relationship that broke apart, and when it broke apart, it ripped my heart in two. And how can I pour love out of a heart that's ripped in two? Joe, I had a family, it imploded, it exploded, and my heart got shredded in the shrapnel. It can't hold love for itself. How is it supposed to love other people? Joe, I'm struggling with addiction. I'm broken from addiction. I'm a broken person. I don't feel like I have anything to offer others out of my brokenness. How can I pour into others? And the truth is, even if all of us went and we tanned a Superman logo on our chest, that outward symbol wouldn't change these inward feelings. Our cup, it's not full. Our cup is low, it's empty. Maybe even it's like little Bexton's, it's upside down, and you're saying, I'm just all done. I think a lot of us are saying, my cup is empty, and I just need to fill it. And I can not only empathize, I can sympathize with you. Right? I've worked multiple jobs. Kinsey and I, we got married young, and I remember working jobs and doing classes and how stressful that was, or having young kids and sleep training and being so tired. And y'all, like, I'm in my 20s. I'm told life just doesn't get easier, right? It's hard. And how does the world work? You can't give something you don't have. I shared with you, I used to be an engineer, so I do enjoy math, and I know that 0 plus 0 doesn't equal 1. If you don't have anything, how are you supposed to give it to someone? That's not how the world works. But here's the thing. God's word, it tells us that we're not of this world. In fact, we're part of a kingdom, and it's an upside-down kingdom where Jesus took many of the values of our world and he flipped them on their head. He told us that the way up is down. To lead, you must serve. To be first, you must be last. To gain your life, you must lose it. And to be filled up, you must pour out. Jesus, he calls us to higher things, but that doesn't mean harder things. He calls us to pour out into others, but that doesn't mean he calls us to be empty. I have an illustration I'd love to share with you to kind of show this. Imagine with me, you are treading water in deep water, and you've been treading for a long time, you're really tired, and you're just struggling to keep your head above the water. Some of you are like, Joe, I don't even need to imagine that. That's where I'm at right now. And as you're treading water, I come up to you and I say, hey, I see you're treading water. Here's something for you to take. And you're like, I'm treading water. Like, I'm struggling, Joe. Do you not understand? I can't take anything. But okay, Joe, I trust you. What is it you need me to take? Does it weigh anything? Because I'm tired. I'm like, yeah, it weighs 5-10 pounds. And you're like, Joe, how out of touch are you? Right? You said you understand I'm treading water, but you're asking me to take this weight. But I guess, Joe, I trust you. I'll take this weight. But how do I hold it? Does it have a strap for me? Do I balance it on my head? Because I need my arms to tread water. I'm like, oh, no, you just have to hold it. I'm like, hold it, Joe. Do you not see I need my hands to tread water? How am I supposed to give one up to hold what you have? I'm exhausted. I'm tired. And I'm like, hold it with one hand. No, you need to hold it with two. And you're like, okay, Joe, I'm ready to lose it right now, right? You say you understand, but you're so out of touch. I'm drowning, and you want me to hold this weight with 2 hands. And it doesn't make sense. It seems out of touch. But the thing is, what I know that you don't know is that what I'm holding, it's not a weight, it's a life preserver. So yeah, it's 5 to 10 pounds. Yeah, you need to hold it with 2 hands. But it's not something that's going to make you sink. It'll help you float. And I think when I talk about calling to love others more, it can feel really overwhelming. I know it can for me, because sometimes with the ways of the world, we don't understand Jesus' way. And some of us are exhausted because we're trying to keep ourselves afloat. We're trying to tread water with our strength. And what if God isn't asking us to do that? What if instead he's offering us a life preserver? Matthew 11, 28 and 30, it says, "Come to me, all who are weary and burdened, and I will give you rest. Take my yoke upon you and learn from me, for I am gentle and humble in heart, and you will find rest for your souls. For my yoke is easy and my burden is light." And this is Jesus talking. This verse, it was shared with me by Pastor John Mark, and this was a couple months ago, and I was in my treading water moment. I had just switched jobs. I came on staff here at church. I was learning kind of how this works, trying to catch up. At the same time, we're in the middle of adoption, and so we were at the thick of our home study, filling out tons of paperwork, finding forms. Like every night was filled with that, and all these adoption bills started coming. And so I was stressed out from all of that, and I decided one weekend my family and I were going to get away to de-stress. And I have 2 cars. I have a good car and a bad car. And I was smart, and I was like, let's take the good car up, because I don't know if the bad car will make it up that mountain. Well, we got to the top of the mountain, and it turns out my good car wasn't that good. And the mechanic said the engine imploded. That was his technical explanation, was it folded in on itself. And so it was totaled. And I had to take a rental back, and now on top of all the other things were cars being, and I didn't feel like the world was just like coming down on me. It was so hard, it was squeezing me out. I wasn't just poured out, I was squeezed out. And I remember I was in John Mark's office. I broke down crying, which was embarrassing for me. And he shared this verse. And interestingly, 2 days later, I was talking to my dad on the phone about the car stuff and kind of telling him where I was at. And he shared the same verse. And between the 2 of them, they kind of gave me 2 insights that I'd like to share with you. So when it talks about taking a yoke upon you, if you are not familiar with yokes, I know we don't use them that much anymore. A yoke in that time, it was a wooden beam that would connect 2 livestock together. And you would have an older oxen and a younger oxen, oftentimes the farmers would, and they would, to teach the younger oxen how to plow the field, they would yoke it to this older oxen who could do it by himself. And the older oxen would just kind of go in his path, and the younger oxen just needed to follow. And what John Mark and my dad shared with me is they said, hey, you are stressed out, you're anxious, you're tired. And I think that it's one of 2 things. One, you have the wrong yoke. Because Jesus says in this verse, he says, my yoke is easy. So if your yoke isn't easy, you might have the wrong yoke. I can get myself in trouble a lot because I try to find rest or find fulfillment through things like career, money, relationships. And those yokes are hard. Right? They won't fill me. They won't fulfill me. Those are hard. In this instance, though, I think I was on the right yoke, but what I was doing was the second thing. And he said, sometimes you are yoked to the right thing, but here's the thing. Jesus is the strong oxen. He's going at his pace, his way. And when I try to take things in my own hands, I can unnecessarily strain. So the older oxen, he might be moving this way, and I'm yoked to him, and I'm trying to go this way. And so I'm struggling as hard as I can. I'm not budging him, and we're still inching forward at his pace, but I'm unnecessarily trying my hardest to go this way. Or maybe he's going along, and I'm trying to get ahead of him. And I'm trying to pull as hard as I can, but I'm not pulling him because he's stronger than me. And all I need to do is submit and get back in line with his ways, trust that he knows the right path, and my yoke can be easy. Similarly, I think for myself and for many of us, when we're thinking of filling our cup, we're thinking about pouring into others. Again, that phrase of my cup is low, it's empty. And when we get in that space, we try to take matters into our own hands. We look at our cup and we look at how little is in it and we go, oh no, how can I do this? And so we think, I need to keep as much liquid in my cup as possible. I can't pour any out because then I'll have less. first I need to fill it, and maybe it can come out of the overflow. And so we'll go through life, and we're so worried about not spilling that we kind of avoid people. And we're like, keep to ourselves, because if we bump into someone, we might spill a couple drops. And so we isolate, and we just keep to ourselves, and we go, okay, I need some me time. I need to focus on myself. I need to do my own thing. But I want to encourage you. God's way is different. And so right now, what we're going to do is we're going to play Flip Cup. Not the kind you might have played on a Saturday night in college, but this cup is saying, instead of holding my cup up, focusing on not spilling a drop, instead, we're going to worry about pouring into others. We're going to flip our cup over and pour into those around us. And we're going to trust, and this is the key truth for today, is that you cannot pour into others faster than God can fill you up. Pouring into others is actually how God will fill you up. In Philippians 2:17, Paul's writing, he says, "But I will rejoice, even if I lose my life, pouring it out like a liquid offering to God, just like your faithful service is an offering to God. And I want all of you to share that joy." Pouring out our life, it leads to being filled with joy. And like Paul, I want all of you to share that joy of pouring into others, because we cannot pour into others faster than God can fill you. God can fill your cup if it's low, if it's empty, even if it's upside down. He's God, he's supernatural, and we just need to do our job and pour into those around us, share Jesus' love, and we can trust that God will do his job in filling our cup. So we're doing Flip Cup, and instead of walking around with it to ourselves, we're going to walk through life pouring it out onto all of us around us. You know, we're dumping water on people around us. Maybe we're turning it into a super soaker and we're spraying everybody. Sorry, that's the student director in me. But we're going to trust that we can pour into others and that it's God will fill us up. So how do we do that? Now, I'm a practical application guy. If I have a message that doesn't have it, I then am having to ask my wife for what the practical application can be. So I want to share some with you. And so I have 3 ways that we can work on pouring into others and work on this concept. The first one is to take a Sabbath. And I know I just lost some of you. You're like, okay, Joe, we're talking about pouring into others, and the first thing you have is about like taking a Sabbath. But here's the thing. I put this first for a reason, and I think it's the most important thing. Because this, taking a Sabbath, is surrendering to Jesus that we believe that he will work things out. It's our way of taking his yoke upon us, grabbing the life preserver. And as Pastor Kendrick says, we'll put God in his first place and trust he'll put everything in his right place. We don't have to tread water. We don't need to try to get all of our things in our week done ourselves, because it can feel overwhelming and it feels like we need that day. But we're going to trust that Jesus and God can do more in 6 days than we can in 7. The second thing is we're going to join a small group. We have small groups coming up here in the fall, in August, and I want to encourage that everybody should get in a small group. When you're thinking of pouring into those around you, what better way than when you have a day of the week set aside that you get to be with 8 to 12 people and pour into their lives. Now, for me, I know joining a small group oftentimes can feel overwhelming. When it's small group sign-up season, I think that Pastor Adam intentionally puts it at the busiest part of my semester, and I'm always so like, I got so much going on. How am I going to make time for this? But the thing is that's held true for my wife and I is that every single time we've joined a small group, even though it's overwhelming and it doesn't feel like we have time in the start, at the end of it, we never regret it. We're always so glad that we did it. And really, we feel more filled and joyful as a result. Lastly, the third point is to love your neighbor. I was recently challenged by someone, and he said, the Bible says to love your neighbor, but do you even know your neighbor? I was like, ooh, right? That hurt because I didn't. And he challenged me. He said, okay, how can you meet your neighbors? How can you know your neighbors so that you can love on them? And he suggested like baking cookies or brownies or even buying something from the store and taking it to them. And I'm not that good at this, but my wife, she is. And I remember a couple months ago, or this was a number of months ago, she had gone and made sourdough bread. And she made extra loaves so she could hand some out to our neighbors. And she went and she was handing them out. And I remember I was asking her who she was going to take it to. And she told me she was going to take it to this one neighbor. And this neighbor is like our grumpy neighbor. He was the get off my lawn, literally has told that to my kids' neighbor. And I was like, is it even safe to go over there? You know? And she's like, no, Joe, like, I'm going to love my neighbor. And so she took the loaf over to him. And let me tell you, that simple act of kindness completely changed our relationship. This neighbor, he shared after, he was so blown away by this loaf of bread. He said it was the nicest thing anyone has ever done for him in the last couple years. And through that, he started to open up, and we started having conversation. And he shared that his mom, he had recently retired, and then his mom got Alzheimer's and dementia. And even though he describes her as a saint before this illness, now she's really mean and angry. And when he's inside caring for her, she's constantly yelling at him, screaming at him, telling him how terrible he is. And he just gets burnt out and drained. And so he would come outside to work on his lawn, and that was his only me time of the day. And so now it made a little bit more sense why he was so particular about it. But then, as we started talking about that, we got to go into other conversations. And he started sharing more about his life. And we got to meet his wife. And we got to share about Jesus with him and invite him to church. And he hasn't been able to come yet because he says that he can't leave his mom. But he's determined that as soon as he's able, he wants to come. And we went from don't even go on his lawn to he might come to church with us from one simple act. Actually, I have a really cool picture from last Christmas. His wife baked, or like handmade Swedish chocolates for my kids. So again, we went from get off my lawn to now they're baking chocolates. You can see my son Baxton just loving them, and our relationship flipped. A simple act of pouring out, we got to see a snowball effect. One more story. This one is not about a physical neighbor, but maybe relational neighbors. And there was a guy, Paul, that I worked with. And my first day at my last job, Volvo Trucks, he took me out to lunch. And he was a believer, and he said, hey, Joe, I'd like to take you out to lunch. And then that whole time, he just asked questions about me, poured into me, said, hey, if you ever need anything, I'm here for you. And I was like, oh my gosh, I felt so loved and cared for. And so then our team grew, and he got really busy. And as our team was growing, he wasn't able to take other people out. And so then I started taking those people out because he had done it for me. And so I took them out to lunch on their first day and did the same thing. And then there was times that I wasn't able to, and a new person came, and those people took that new person out. And it grew and grew and grew. And my first day at Grace Church, actually, there was 6 of them that they came to church, many of them for the first time in their lives in a church. All because of the snowball effect of that simple act of pouring out and love that Paul gave to me. And this is like Chayton's story where he flooded the whole downstairs. If you were in the upstairs bathroom, you couldn't tell. It looked like there's barely any water that went on the floor. But downstairs, there was a flood happening. And I think for Paul, I don't even know that he knows the effect of him taking me out to lunch had. But it affected literally at least a dozen people downstream. So as you pour out, just know that sometimes you might not see the impact, but with God's math, he can multiply it and give an impact. And so to close, I know some of us, we are exhausted, and we've been trying to keep ourselves afloat. But what if God isn't asking us to tread water? What if he's offering us the life preserver? What if pouring out, it's not about working harder, but it's about trusting deeper. Let's start loving others, not with words and t-shirts, but with actions. Let's let our lives be an example of Jesus and what he's done for us. Let's pour out to those around us, because you cannot pour into others faster than God can fill you up. And I want you to hear this, because it's not just Joe speak, it's not just my opinion. It is God's promise for you. It's his divine design. Proverbs 11:25 says, whoever brings blessing will be enriched, and the one who waters will himself be watered. In other words, the one who pours out will be filled. We're not adding to our plate. We're experiencing the joy of living in community as God designed us for. Now, if you feel empty and you don't have a personal relationship with Jesus, what if tonight you answered his call? In the verse we read earlier, he says, come to me, all who are weary and burdened, and I will give you rest. Jesus wants to take your burdens. He wants to fill your cup. You just need to let him. You're not Superman. That's the truth. But also, you have access to someone who's far greater. And God wants to carry your burdens for you. He wants to take them. You just need to stop treading water and grab the life preserver. Now, we all have a next step to take as we grow in the way we pour into others and trust Jesus. For some of us, it's taking a Sabbath, grabbing the life preserver. Maybe we're joining a fall small group. Or maybe you've been in small groups and now it's time for you to take the next step and lead one. We're going to find physical ways to love our neighbor, both physical and at work, and pour Jesus' love out to those around us. And so I'd love to pray for you today, as you go out to do this. God, Lord, I just thank you for everyone here. God, I thank you that you tell us that we can come to you and you'll give us rest. I thank you that we don't have to be strong because, God, you are strong. And Lord, we don't have to tread water anymore. We just need to trust you and grab the life preserver. God, I pray for everyone here today, God, that as they pour into their community, as they pour into their neighbors, their families, God, that you would multiply that in the way that only you can. And God, that as they're pouring out, that you would fill them up. And we can hold firm and be confident in the fact that you will fill us up faster than we can pour out. And God, for anyone here today, Lord, that's exhausted, that's tired, God, that's broken, and they don't have a personal relationship with you, God, I just ask that they would grab that life preserver. God, that they would take your yoke upon them, because maybe they've tried the yokes of the world. They've tried a career. They've tried relationships. They've tried money. God, but their yokes are heavy and yours is light. And I just ask that you give them the confidence to come to you. And if that's you tonight or today, I just want to invite you in this next prayer to answer the call that Jesus is giving you. If you would like to take that next step with Jesus, I would invite you to pray this prayer with me. God, thank you for loving me so much that you sent your son to die on the cross for my sins. I don't want to carry my burdens alone anymore. I want to follow you as my Lord and trust you to lead my life as I experience the rest you promised in Matthew 28. Lord, I'm weary and I need you. I ask for you to come into my heart and to be the Lord of my life. God, I love you. Amen.
Amen. Come on, y'all. Wasn't that phenomenal? Tell you what, Joe, you did a great job. So appreciate Joe and Kinsley and Brooke and Hugo and the whole team just loving on our young people at Grace Church. We have a heart for our students, for our kids, for our students, college, young adults. Like, they're not the church of tomorrow, they're the church of today. And we made a decision, kind of stepped out by faith as a church. We said, hey, every rising junior and senior, we want to send them on a mission trip. If you attend Serve and Give, we're going to pay for it 100%. Get outside the United States of America, experience what it's like to bring the good news of Jesus and to go to give, but also to receive and to be changed. And I just want to thank you. I want to honor you for your generosity at Grace Church, because your giving to the Advance the Kingdom offering allowed us to send all these students to make a difference. And it was powerful and it was absolutely life-changing. In fact, real briefly, I want to give you one little glimpse of what your generosity did, and then we'll talk briefly about Camp EXP. But I want to introduce to you Lawson. Lawson was on the trip to the Dominican Republic, and my daughter was there, and my daughter and Lawson and another student were hanging out. They were at my house. Come on up, Lawson. And I just heard Lawson's heart. I heard what God did in his life. And we were just hanging out in our kitchen talking, and it really, really touched me. And I said, man, I want everyone to meet Lawson. And I asked him this morning, I said, hey, would you mind getting up? And this is a can-do guy. And tell us, what did God do in your heart and life on the trip to the Dominican Republic?
So about 4 days into the trip, I was talking with one of the YWAM leaders, Ellie, and she'd asked if I had accepted the Lord as my Savior. And I was like, oh, I'm Christian. I presumed that, I already had. And I had realized it was such a performative mindset. And so in that moment, with my other friend Shepard, she had read in English and Spanish the Lord's acceptance prayer. And right after that, I felt something in my life that I had never felt before. It was like something was cast off of my heart. The Lord cleansed my heart. And over the next rest of those 5 days, the Lord worked in me in ways that I had never imagined I would in my life. I went from someone who wanted to believe to someone who couldn't believe in anything else other than the Lord. And I realized that, like, a lot of times we use our own strength. When our strength ends, the Lord's strength begins. And as long as you turn to him, his plan will keep us prospering. I mean, he knows every single sin that we have made before we were even born. And he died on the cross for that sin. And we're not above the Lord. His forgiveness is above all. And the fact that he decided to die on that cross and yet still chooses to love us no matter how much we hurt him or choose to do the wrong thing because we're only human in our flesh, that he sits there and says, it's okay, come back to me, I love you. And once I had realized that, the next few days I got back from the trip and I was worried. I was like, Lord, I don't want this. I pray in my bed. I had these rosemary beads from Italy, and I'd sit on my knees and say, Lord, please don't let this be your spiritual high. Please make this something more than just a good time in the Dominican Republic with you. And since then, I had helped one of my friends. Her name is Faith. We went around UNC campus to buy one of my friends from the YWAM a hat, actually, and mail it to him. And so I said, how do you accept the Lord as your Savior? And she's like, no. And I felt the Holy Spirit in me work. And she accepted right then and there on that sidewalk. I took everything out of my pockets. And we goofed around a little bit, and then we settled down. And she said, you know, I just feel so much better, so much more free. And then, I mean, it could be things as simple as you give your hamburger to the bus driver, or you compliment Frank the chef. Or last night, I, bought food for some guy cookout and prayed for him. And I feel like a lot of times, we need to be a vessel of the God's word and his love. We have all this almighty knowledge from him. We shouldn't just keep it to ourselves. We should spread it. And I feel like that is my duty. And I've dedicated in January to spend 6 months in disciple training school and really see how much I can evangelize and spread God's word.
Oh, yeah. Give the Lord a hand. Isn't that good? Come on. So powerful. So powerful. And Lawson is like the coolest guy. You're so inspiring. And then to think we kind of look similar, what do you think? Can I pull it off? I'm just kidding. Hey, Lawson, briefly, I'd like you to pray a blessing over us. It's so inspiring to see what God's done in your life and the heart for the Lord and what God is doing through you to be a blessing to your peers. But I want you to pray a blessing over Grace Church, and then we'll wrap it up.
Absolutely. Heavenly Father, Lord, I would just first like to thank you for bringing all these wonderful people, all of your children here today. Lord, you've led us together to share and spread your gospel and your love. And I just ask that you bless them, that any troubles that they may not talk about, anything that they may have trouble forgetting themselves for, that, Lord, that you touch their hearts, that you put your hands on them and you guide them. You shine that lantern at their feet one step at a time, and that specifically in this next chapter of your life, that they stay close to you, that you stay close to them and help them. Lord, you're capable of so many great things, and yet the fact that we're able to follow you, Lord, is just such a blessing in and of itself. So I just ask, Lord, that you just stay close to these people and that they can turn to you in any time. You never fail us, and you know our plan. And the fact that I'm able to even be up here today, Lord, and to even pray to you is just a blessing in and of itself. And I just pray that whatever struggle that they go through, that they feel your presence, especially in this chapter of their lives. In Jesus' name we pray, amen.
Oh, y'all, so good. Thanks, Lawson. You're the best. Hey, y'all, we've got, here's another powerful experience and a decision we made years ago, actually, was we do a camp every summer for middle school and high school students. We make a commitment. We want every single student going to camp. And I want to give you an opportunity today where the students are serving you on Student Sunday, and they've got hot dogs and hamburgers, and we got lunch for everybody, so stick around and do that. But if you'd like to make a donation to help send a student to camp, it would mean the world. It'd be so helpful. My wife and I are going to be part of that. We want to help send a student to camp. And if you give anything to help send a student to camp, we want to give you a free t-shirt just to say thank you. And just really believe that we can invest in the next generation and really make a difference for Christ. So enjoy some hot dogs and hamburgers. Listen, 2 weeks, y'all, and it's going to be game on at the movies. So invite somebody for at the movies, and we'll see you soon.